Hello, Lynn. How are you?
Hello.
You good?
Yes.
Good. Good to hear. Hello. How are you?
Can you hear me clear? Because some teacher told me that my microphone is a little bit weird.
Oh, okay. No, I can hear you. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
No problems. Good to see you all now. Everybody else is arriving. Isaac is here. How are you, Isaac?
Hello, Mr. Ding. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right there, Isaac. We're one day closer to the weekend, and that's always a good thing.
That is a very good thing.
All right, now we're going to get everybody arriving very soon. Here's Tracy. How are you, Tracy?
Yeah, I'm good.
Good. All right, now, ladies and gentlebeans, as I push this button here and this button here, and then I jump back to the meet because I've lost where we are now. Here we are. We are going to jump right in. So if I do the present window. Now, in the classroom, I have posted the link to the Nearpod. So what I'll get you to do, ladies and gentlebeans, is jump into the Nearpod, all right? So the code today is S74M3. S74M3, and the code to that should be in the classroom. You'll be able to link up through there. Plus, as per normal, we find the code in the top left-hand corner of the Nearpod itself. All right, and waiting for you all to come in. Oh, yes, we've got some of you arriving. That's fantastic. Good to see. All right, so we're going to be pressing on, and we're going to be discovering and discussing some interesting, perhaps more application skill-based concepts with regards to elasticity. All right. Why is it not showing up on my screen? Where is it gone? What's going on here? Are you seeing anything, or is yours blank too?
Yeah, we can't see anything.
Okay, let's try that again. For some reason, Nearpod was not working. For some reason, that's a first. All right, let's try again. What date did I see you last? Was it the 2nd? 3rd?
Second.
2nd. I might try that one. Let's see if that works. Come on, Nearpod. Let's try this. Okay, apologies, ladies and gentlemen. Let's try a code, a different code this time. So you'll need to log back in. Try the code 9IGFK. 9IGFK. Try that code, and we will see if this one works. Hopefully this one will work. But unusual that it did that. 9IGFK. And you will see that your names are already in there because this is where we were at last time. Right, we were talking about PED, price elasticity of demand, and we were discussing right, the idea of determinants of PED. So what was it that caused the actual PED itself? What was it that caused it to be as elastic or inelastic as we have found it to be through the calculation? Where has it gone? Where are all my slides?
Technical issue, maybe?
Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. So we're going to jump to here then. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do old-fashioned technology. So can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yeah, the slide, right?
The slide. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to go through the slide instead of going through the Nearpod because the Nearpod seems to not be working. In fact, what I might do is I might actually crash the Nearpod. That. And try and sort it out again. Oh, where'd you go? Come back. Yeah. Right, PED, let's have a look. We had 8 determinants of PED. That's where we left off. We talked about how, just as a quick review, we talked about how if a product was unique, if there was something very special about a particular product, right, a good or a service, then that would make it more inelastic because there's one of a kind. We have to have this. The time period involved, if you had a lot of time to find cheaper alternatives, that in theory should make it more price elastic. If we are looking at the idea of loyalty, right? So you have a rewards card, a membership card, and I don't know about you, but I seem to have 20 million other things, right? Then you are more likely to purchase a product from that particular place because you have that card, regardless of the price. So therefore, you're more inelastic because of your loyalty to the particular product. The breadth of the product category. If there's a large number of varieties within the same product line, then you have more choice. So you can go for, you know, the iPhone Pro or the iPhone SE or the iPhone Pro Max or the, yeah. So there is a bit more elasticity that might go within that. Who is paying? We said that that had to do with whether this is coming out of your wallet or someone else's wallet. And if it's coming out of someone else's wallet, then it's more likely to be inelastic for you personally because you're not the one actually doing the paying for it. Then we've got this idea about determinants. We've got another 3. We've got the idea of availability and awareness of substitutes. Now, there are going to be some things that are a bit unusual, a bit quirky. There are no actual substitutes for them. So therefore, you know, they're going to be pretty inelastic. Your demand for them will be pretty inelastic. And it might be that they're not particularly expensive, but that they are... Hello, are you still there?
That was for fun. That was for fun. Don't forget it.
All right. Quirky, yes. If you're not familiar with the word, I have used it on occasion and will probably use it again. The idea here is that, yes, if one of the classic examples, we used to use this in New Zealand, and we used to use it as a bit of like a trap for young players. And the product that we talked about was the, if you can imagine in your head, a car. Ooh, what does a car look like? The blades that go on the windscreen wipers, the rubber blade that goes on a windscreen wiper. Now, for all intents and purposes, there is nothing else that you can use, no other product that you can use to wipe the rain off of your windscreen other than a windscreen wiper. So therefore, for that product, there really isn't any substitute. They're actually not quite expensive, all right? But because they are a bit unique in the sense that there aren't any substitutes for them, then they're more likely to be inelastic, and that if you need one, you're going to pay for it. And then this one here is about the percentage spent on your income. If you're not spending a lot of money, if it doesn't contribute a lot to your income, right, the spending on it, then you're probably likely to be less elastic, more inelastic with regards to it. Right, you're just going to buy it. You're just going to pay for it, even if it's 100% price change, but it's only a small amount. Yeah, buy it. Right. And then, of course, the nature of the product itself. If the product is addictive, if it's a necessity, if it's habit forming, yeah, the good old Coca-Colas, right? Those sorts of products, you're going to pay for them regardless of the price. They'll be more inelastic because you're potentially addicted to them. All right, so there's some examples there from real life. Basic foods, fuel for your car, so petrol, and luxury goods. All right, now we've talked about petrol. All right, what happens when the price of petrol goes up? What do we think? Have a guess. This is a new one. I haven't really had this before. It's called Saxby's Lemonade. And it's a no sugar variety. It's different, I must say. Consider the demand for petrol. I was going to say the demand for lemonade.
It goes down.
Yeah, we would expect that, wouldn't we? We would expect the quantity demanded to decrease when the price rises.
Yes.
However, if you haven't ever been in a car before, you kind of know that cars need petrol to drive,
Yes.
fuel, yeah. And if you don't have petrol, the car doesn't go. All right, it becomes a giant piece of metal sculpture. All right, so therefore, and I don't know if you've been in that experience where you've seen the fuel gauge get lower and lower and lower, and you're further and further away from the petrol station, going all right. I have. Okay, on the way to school, believe it or not. All right, will I have enough petrol to get to school? Hopefully. So the idea is it's fairly inelastic, the demand for petrol. So even if the price was to rise, which we see from time to time, people will still buy it. Okay. Right. Now,
Mr. David,
yellow.
because the demand curve doesn't change. Or
Yeah,
does it
well,
decrease?
it will. It's just that it will be less responsive. I mean, they will do things like they will reduce the amount of petrol they buy. So instead of getting a full tank, they'll get like 3/4 of a tank or half a tank. You know, that's what people will end up doing. Yeah, or they'll share a ride with someone so that they're not using petrol.
All right, got it. Thanks.
So it becomes a bit of a behavioural change at that point. Right, now one of the things I would like you to do, and I'm going to add this into the classroom, is for you to talk to someone in your family, and I know because you're obviously in the house with them, so you possibly don't want to do this at this point. It's like overkill. But see if you can teach someone in your family what elasticity is all about. Because one of the best ways to learn something, particularly something that's a bit complicated, is to actually try and teach it to someone else. And an example like petrol, right, will be one that maybe mum and dad will understand really quickly. Yeah. So coming up with those sorts of things. So that would be a cool thing for you to do. Now, how about this though? Pineapple, tobacco, overseas holidays, and textbooks. Now, are they elastic, right, very responsive, or do you think they're likely to be inelastic, not very responsive to price change? So let's go through them one at a time. Pineapples. What do we think? Are they more likely or less likely to be elastic? Are they likely to be elastic or inelastic? What do you think?
Elastic.
Potentially elastic. Yeah, I would agree with that. Right? I mean, there's a chance somebody could be addicted to pineapple.
One more time.
Yeah. Anybody addicted to pineapple?
I don't think so.
The next
I like
one.
pineapples.
Yeah. Tobacco. Now, when we say tobacco, not everybody understands what I'm referring to there, so I'm going to say cigarettes. All right. Do we consider cigarettes to be more elastic, as in more responsive, or more inelastic? What do you think?
Very inelastic. They're extremely addictive.
All right. And because they're addictive, then people are going to pay for them regardless of the price. Well done. Rock stars. Overseas holidays. What do we think?
As an inelastic.
Yeah.
Very elastic. They take up a large portion of income.
Mm-hmm. Well done. Absolutely. You guys are amazing. Yes, absolutely right. We would expect overseas, I mean, obviously at the moment, everything's all locked down and nobody's really going anywhere. But under normal circumstances, I don't know what normal is anymore, I've kind of forgotten. But under normal circumstances, we would expect overseas holidays to be more of a luxury good, all right? More of a good that, you know, people with the money, and they'll go traveling this place, and, you know, they'll have their photo taken in Paris by the Eiffel Tower, and then the next year they're, you know, walking through the Appalachian Trail or whatever, yeah? All right? So therefore, you would expect that if the prices were to rise, that people would then be more responsive to those price rise changes. Textbooks, what do we think? That's a difficult one.
I think it will be inelastic.
Inelastic.
Inelastic, I think. Yeah, because it's kind of necessary. So.
Yeah, now there's a bit of a trap for young players with this one, right? Because here's the secret, right? Is it a textbook that you need? See what I did there? right?
I think
So
it
if you had-
depends.
Sorry?
It depends, I think.
Exactly. Well done. Very good economics answer. It depends. It does depend. If you need the textbook, then for you it becomes a reputed necessity, so it becomes more inelastic. But if it's a textbook for, I don't know, chemical biology, and you're not taking chemical biology, I don't know if there is such a thing, but I'll make it up if there isn't, then it's very elastic for you. Like, oh, I don't need it. So a lot of those are, it depends. I mean, similar, you could make an argument about tobacco as well. We describe it as being inelastic, but it's only inelastic for people who are addicted to it. It won't be inelastic to people who never touch the stuff. Right? For them, it's perfectly elastic. They don't care. They won't buy it at all. All right. Now, this is the part where we're going to need to do a little bit of diagramming. All right. Not a huge amount. Right, we're going to need to learn, we're going to learn about what's called a revenue box. We're also doing the application with regards to why we need to know PED, who needs to know about PED, and what the implication of a knowledge of PED actually means. So what I'm going to do, I'm still sharing, is I'm going to jump to here, and I'm going to open something. Oh, let me see. Close that. All right, push the buttons. Now there's something here called whiteboard, and if I click on that and I do start a whiteboard, now in your chat function, right, very soon, send. So in the chat function, there should now be a link, right, and that is a link to something called a Jamboard.
Wow.
Which sounds like we're, starting our own rock band. Okay, and it's been many a year for me. All right, so if you could click on the link, and you should then be able to see my interactive whiteboard. Do we see it?
Yes.
Good, fantastic. All right, so I'm going to do a wee drawing here. Apologies for my incredibly bad drawing, but we will have a go. All right, so here is our axis. All right, axis of awesome. All right, price on that axis. This price is always on the left. Quantities on that axis. I'm just going to use the letter Q for quantity because it's fairly conventional nowadays to just use Q. I'm going to draw a demand curve, just like that. All right, the reason why I'm doing this is as an for illustrative purposes. All right, you are also able to take screenshots and all sorts of other things should you need to. Right, that you can include in your notes. I'm going to do a little dotted line over here because this is a market now. I know the market for hats. Dotted line down here. There we go. Q, E. Right, so the equilibrium quantity and the equilibrium price. Apologies for my bad diagramming. Now, here's what we think. Let's imagine that you are the producer. So you're the person in the supply curve here. You're the business. And if I change the color of the pen to, oh, look at this, I'm going to go blue today. Right, so this then becomes the price of the product that you're selling. This is the quantity that you have actually sold, because that's where the demand curve is, right? So that's the quantity you have sold. That's the price of each unit, right? So it might be that it's $10 a unit, however much, and you've sold 1 million units, so that's $10 million for you. Woohoo! All right. So what we can then do is do this little wee drawing here, and you might recognize this particular geometric shape. It's not exactly in the space where it needs to be, but undo. No, in fact, I can actually undo that. There we go. Clever. All right. So then if we just shade this area in here, what is it that I'm illustrating with this particular box? I'm going to get a sticky note. This box represents the price of the product multiplied by the quantity sold. That equals the total revenue earned by the firm. All right, so I'm going to put that over here because I can then make it bigger. Look at that. P times Q sold, that equals the total revenue earned by the firm. So here's another idea, another concept. So the idea of revenue is going to be income that the firm earns. So we're not talking about profits here. Profits are different, right? Profits are very different. We're just talking about the amount of money, the amount of income that a firm has earned. And the word we use to describe that type of income is revenue. So we are going to need to have revenue in your glossary in the future and total revenue in your glossary. This is the calculation that you use to calculate it. And visually on a market model, it looks like that. All right, you see that? That's a revenue box. It's a revenue box because it looks like a box. All right. Now, let's imagine in our imaginingness, if I change the color of the pen to green, let's make the demand curve more inelastic. Here we go. Oops, sorry. Inelastic. There it is. Okay. Now, if I do that, and if we have a price change, say let's do a price change here, E1, then I've drawn this curve in the wrong place. Let me get rid of that. Apologies. Oops, redo. Green pen. All right, let's make this curve a bit more inelastic. Well, firstly, let's draw an increase in price. All right, so here it is, P1. Okay. And let's imagine our demand curve being more inelastic. It's not perfectly inelastic, it's just more inelastic than it was before, less responsive. All right, so if it's up here, all right, okay, the quantity change is going to be very, very slight. Do we see that? There's not a lot of quantity change at all. Price has gone up.
Wait, Mr. David?
Yellow.
But right now, the line isn't shifting anymore because it's not shifting to the left or right. It's tilting.
It's just tilting, that's right. We are effectively changing the slope. Okay, so we're making it steeper. All right. If we make it steeper like this, all right, so it is inelastic, this leads to less responsiveness. Which means when the producer raises the price, they gain revenue.
Wait, Mr. David, so is the green line the new demand line then?
Yes, it is. Okay. Change the color to blue. And make that bigger. So this is amazing. So this is why when you think about it, what happens when you see an inelastic product, right? What are they going to do? Well, they're going to increase the price on it because they know more or less you're going to buy pretty much exactly the same, and all that will happen is they will gain more revenue. Yeah. If they were to decrease the price, if it's inelastic, then they're going to lose revenue. But if they increase price, then they actually gain revenue. So those products that are perfectly inelastic, they're going to gain a lot of revenue from raising the price. All right, so I'll shrink that back down and go back to slides.
Wait, Mr. David.
Yeah.
So right now in this graph,
Yeah.
what happens? Okay, so the price increases
Yes.
and the quantity decreases just a bit. But what about the demand and supply?
Yeah, well, we are making an assumption about supply as well. So we're going to assume that supply has changed. Apologies. Okay.
But then if
That's what's caused the price to go up. All right. But from a demand point of view, all that's happened is there's been very little quantity change and a price change. So they've actually gained all of this area in here as extra revenue. So from a producer point of view, if you know your product is inelastic, then one of the best things you can do to gain revenue is to increase the price on it. All right, so let's assume that price is reduced by 10%. There it is. Quantity demanded rises by 20%, so that's more than responsive. If you do the calculation on that, okay, quantity over price, so 20% divided by 10%, you're going to end up with 2 as your answer. So what does that actually mean? That means that the quantity demanded has changed at twice the rate of the price change. It's 2, all right? 20% greater than 10%. The percentage, so a 1% fall in price has led to a 2% increase in the quantity demanded. Therefore, we say it is elastic. It is a greater than proportional change. And you'll notice this comes, this is the sort of question that could appear like this in your exam, right? Or it could be word-based. So if the price of lettuces fall by 10%, and the quantity demanded rises by 20%, what is the PED of lettuces in the supermarket? And then you'd work all this out. Right? And that's how you would explain it. All right? That's the application of that particular theory. Moving one on. Oh, not moving. All right, one on. Yes. Here's another example. Now, this one's slightly different because this one I haven't done the percentages. Okay. So here the original price is $5 of, so the original price of hats is $5 per hat. And the original demand is 100 units. The price has increased by $1 and the demand has decreased by 10 units. In this case, it's an increase. Right, so now you haven't been given the percentages, so you know that you need the percentages, so you have to work them out. So thankfully, I've given you an example where you can actually do that just because you're mathematicians, just by looking at it, and you know that 1 in every $5 is the equivalent of 20%. So the price is increased by 20%. You know that 10 expressed as a fraction of 100 is 10, so 10% is the decrease in quantity demanded. So in this case, you've got 10 divided by 20, or if you like, 1 over 2, or 0.5. So if you've got a PED coefficient of 0.5, what does that mean? What type of elasticity is it? Who can tell me?
Is it perfectly inelastic?
Not perfectly.
Just
But
inelastic.
inelastic.
It's inelastic. It is. Well done. So it is less than responsive. Now, quite clearly, the lowest number we can get to would be 0. All right, and that would mean there's no response at all. Okay?
Oh, so 0 is perfectly inelastic?
Yes, 0
And
is
then
going to...
0 to 1 is inelastic?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And then anything over 1, because then that's greater than proportional, is going to be elastic. And how big can the elastic numbers go?
Infinity.
Infinity.
Infinity, yeah. The good old letter 8 that's fallen over because it's tired. Yeah, can. All right. There it is. There's TR equals P times Q. So this idea, where am I? Here. That we've got a coefficient for PED. We've actually done the calculation. It's going to help us when we're trying to figure out, as a business, how to price our product. It's also going to help us figure out what's going to happen to our revenue if the price changes. So as you saw before, if our product is more inelastic, then it actually makes sense for us to increase the price. So here's the rules. The rules. If a product is elastic, so demand is responsive to a change in price, in order for the firm to increase their revenue, they're going to have to decrease its price. Conversely, right, or nicely, if the demand for a product is inelastic, so it is less responsive to a price change, then the firm will need to increase its prices in order to increase total revenue. Dum, dum, dum. Exciting stuff. So this is what we need to tell the people manufacturing the products. If your product is elastic, you need to do a sale. You need to decrease the price of it in order to encourage more people to buy it. If your product is more inelastic, you don't need a sale, but what you do need to do is increase the price, and you're going to see an increase in revenue. And again, we understand this. Naturally, we go into a supermarket and we see that the price of ice creams has dropped and it's on special. And then we go around the corner and we see toilet paper has increased in price because it's essential and therefore inelastic. We see it all the time. We just haven't actually written it down as a rule. Now, these are the application rules with regards to elasticity and the relationship between the concept of PED and prices and pricing decisions. So we care, businesses care, because firms, businesses, are then able to use this idea to decide on a pricing strategy. So if your product is inelastic, you might decide on a strategy to increase the prices. Right? Knowledge of PED is going to help your firm predict the impact of price changes on revenue. So you know, inelastic, increase, more revenue. Right? It will enable you to engage in price discrimination. So you're going to be able to see what's going to happen with regards to your elasticity and the revenue changes that will happen. So you're then able to say, well, this person, demand is more inelastic for that person, but more elastic for that person. So I'm going to decrease the price for that person and increase the price for that one. Sounds crazy, I know, but you may have experienced this yourself if you've ever bought something and it's been cheaper for you because you're a student. Yeah. And you've gone traveling somewhere and it's cost you more to go to that particular place because you're not a local, you're paying expat prices. Yeah. So you can see that price discrimination occurring, and it's based on the different levels of elasticity that different consumers will have. Firms are able to, businesses, they're able to work out how much of their taxes they're going to be able to give to you. Right? So if your product, again, if we go back to that inelastic product, if your product is inelastic, there's going to be less decrease in quantity demanded if the price rises. So therefore, when a tax is put on your product, you, the business, are able to pass more of that cost onto your consumers, get them to pay it, right? Rather than you paying it yourself, okay, as a business, because the consumers will just pay it because it's a price increase, right? And they're inelastic. It also will help governments understand about taxation. They will know what will happen to their tax revenue, the income they earn from taxes, if they tax an inelastic good. Whew, that's a lot. Now, can you imagine, in your imaginingness, how big the question is going to be in relation to this? Well, I'm going to tell you, you're looking there at between a 6 and an 8 mark question. Defining PED, showing an application of PED, and then explaining who is interested in PED, or why a knowledge of PED is useful. And there are 8-mark questions in the future that will ask you that. Sometimes they'll cut it down to 6. They might just say, how does a knowledge of PED affect businesses? So therefore you could ignore the bit about the government. All right? And that is your answer. Okay? It might again be a specific good. How does the knowledge of PED impact on producers who produce this particular product? In which case you'd need to include that particular product in there. All right. Now this isn't the only elasticity concept. There are others. Okay. You are going to learn one more elasticity concept. All right, and that's going to come around next week. Next week? I think we start that next week. All right, I am going to be asking you a question next week. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see you all. Hey, team. All right, I am going to, all right, next week, all right, release a question to you. It's sitting there all ready to go, practice exam question, and it's about basically the market model and elasticity. Right, that's what it's about. There will be a couple of multiple choice questions within it, and then a slightly longer extended response question. Now, the slides that you've seen, those structures, right, within the notes, that's the level of understanding I'd like you to get to, but also the level of writing that we're trying to build in your written responses. All right, if you have any questions, you can ask them and email me. But what I'd like you to do, okay, review the concepts, okay, so that we come back next time and it's determinants of price elasticity of demand, and it's understanding about why the significance of PED, all right? We can look at all of those, we can wrap this subunit up, start the next subunit, and then you can have a question on it in your second, so it'll be your second lesson of the week, so this time next week, you'll have a question, okay? So please do review between now and then, and as said, one of the best ways to learn is actually to try and teach someone else. So take some of those ideas and information about elasticity and try and teach a family member, because you're stuck in a house together, you might as well do something together, yeah? All right, so that's where we're at. If you have any particular questions, please feel free to email me. Otherwise, as we'd say in the land of my birth, hei kōrera, which means goodbye for now, and we'll turn off the meet.
Thank you, Mr. David.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. David.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye. You all right, Evelyn? Still here? Okay, I'm going to need to turn you off. No, you've gone. Good. Bye.